Hello, everybody. Steve Mills here, and welcome to the Results Mastery podcast. As you can probably see if you're looking on audio, I've got a guest with me today. His name is Steve Wicks. Now, slightly unusually for me, Steve comes from a background as a professional footballer, having played several leading clubs, including Chelsea. I'll leave him to tell you all about that in a moment when I sort of hand over to him. But I just wanted to say, I think, you know, I've been focused literally all my life. As Steve knows, I used to play ping pong for a living. I was telling him the other day that why did I pick table tennis? Was because I was rubbish at football, and I really wanted to be a footballer, when I was a kid, like most children, really. And I got to about 13, I couldn't even get in the school team, let alone about anything else. And one day I picked up a table tennis bat and I could just do it. I played, and I had a really interesting thing happen to me. I started when I was 14, and on my 18th birthday, I played against a guy called Kuo Yu Hua, who was the Chinese world champion. I
Oh,
got my arse kicked at the time, but it was quite something inside 4 years.
yeah,
We're playing against the best in the world. But
that's brilliant.
since then, I've been totally focused on results, and I know, obviously, in the football world, it's all about results. Win, lose,
Yeah.
or draw. So, that said, I'm going to hand over to Steve to just give us a bit of an introduction, if you would, Steve, in terms of you and your background and what you're doing here today. Why have you agreed to come on the podcast? And thank you ever so much for doing so. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've written a book about my time at Chelsea, basically, and
Okay.
it's called Nothing But the Truth.
Yeah.
And it's about a group of boys that signed for Chelsea at the age of 14, 15.
Uh-huh.
And we went through all the youth teams and reserve teams and Chelsea got into a dreadful financial state and they were on the verge of going bankrupt.
Right.
So they sold off all their superstars and put a group of boys that had known each other from the age of 14 onwards into the first team squad.
Wow.
And that year before they got relegated into the second division.
Uh-huh.
So all of a sudden we arrive at the training ground and we're not in the reserve team dressing room, we're in the first team dressing room.
Okay.
So you think, oh my God, this is
It must have been quite a shock, really. Yeah.
yeah, but it was exciting. Eddie
Yeah.
McCreevy had just been made manager. Ray Wilkins was made captain at the age of 18.
Wow. Yeah. I
And
remember Ray.
yeah, and we then had a meeting with the chairman, and he basically said that due to building the East Stand at Stamford Bridge, the
Yeah.
club had sunk into huge amount of debt in those days.
Yeah.
And that basically we've got 2 years to get promotion and bring Chelsea back to the first division where they belong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So a group of 18, 19-year-old boys not only had the pressures of all of a sudden being in the Chelsea first team, but also the responsibilities of trying
Of
to
the club.
save
Yeah.
their beloved club. And
Yeah.
and we all love Chelsea. That's why
Yeah.
we
Right.
started,
Right. Yeah.
and we were so close and so together. The first year we played, we got absolutely kicked to pieces off the park by very sort of experienced professionals.
Yeah. Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
we took hold of that, and the second year we won promotion
Yeah.
and got Chelsea back into the first division.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's an amazing achievement, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, it really was. But what sadly, I've lost quite a few of my teammates from that squad,
Mm.
and I just wanted to do a book that told the truth about the pressures and responsibilities we had,
Hmm.
um, and to do a tribute to them
Yeah, well, that's
because they
really
deserve it.
nice, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you sort of manage to remain in touch with and friends with those people? I suppose not all of them, maybe, but
No, no, football's a funny game. I think you're like soldiers. You go into war every Saturday, and you've
yeah,
got that
yeah,
mutual respect for each other.
yeah,
Uh, but when you see them again, oh, there's big cuddles
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
but no, it was a wonderful experience. And as I said, I just wanted to do a tribute, and it's funny, just to tell you a little story. When Chelsea had their centenary dinner,
yeah.
the only person that was invited was Ray Wilkins. He was on the staff at the time.
Okay.
But someone spoke to Roman and told the story of they called it the class of 72 or the class of 72. And he told Roman the story. 4 weeks later, Roman had organised a tribute dinner to us at
Wow.
the Dorchester Hotel in the ballroom.
Okay.
And he was just incredible what he did for us. And so he got to Roman.
Yeah.
Roman
Yeah.
understood. And
He appreciated,
yeah,
obviously it's not in his time, but the
yeah,
effort
the
that
history.
everybody, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's an amazing story.
yeah,
It really is. How do you think, just going back there to those times, how do you think you managed to turn it around? Because, I know what you mean, because I'm a big football fan myself. I
yeah,
watch a lot of football. And I know when you bring young players into a team, it's sometimes tough for them, and let alone about bringing a team
yeah,
full of
yeah,
young players, to go and play against people who are, probably older, stronger.
yeah,
I'm
yes.
not sure whether they'd be fitter, but
No,
certainly, just it's like playing, it's going from, it's almost like being a junior and then
yeah,
playing at senior level. How did
yeah.
how did you manage to turn that around so quickly?
I think what we had, we'd won the FA Youth League 2 years on the trot.
Right.
We then got promoted to the reserves team and we won the combination. We won
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Four of us played for England youth in the Mini World Cup when we won the Mini World Cup in
Okay.
'75.
Okay.
So I think there was a belief there.
Yes.
There was a real belief. We believed in each other, um, and together. And also, I must say, our 13th man that year were the fans. The fans
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. 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 I
They're
could.
what I call the real Chelsea fans
Yeah.
because they were hard times. They'd been used to. I think that the team just before they went into bankruptcy or just administration, the team before that had been in 3 cup finals in 4 years. But when everything went wrong and Chelsea got relegated out of the blue, it was a real shock.
Yeah.
Um, that my God, they got behind us as a team and they absolutely were our 13th man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were absolutely brilliant. And I look at it, and it was a club united in adversity.
Yes.
Yeah. And we just became so close and so together. And some of the scenes when we won promotion
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
were unbelievable.
It's the sort of thing you never forget, isn't it?
No,
Uh,
I think the last game we had was 53,000.
was it really? Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and they were brilliant. And the one thing about playing for Chelsea, certainly in those days, is you never felt alone. You had your army of supporters that were
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a joint effort by
Yeah.
everybody at the club.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm not sure I told you, but I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan
Yeah,
for my sins, and so we're very aware of that yo-yo effect. We've not
yeah,
been in the Premier for quite some time, but up and down, and good times and bad, and you think you're going to do well now, and then it all changes. So but and Wednesday have got again, a great support, and. I think that's so important, isn't it,
Oh,
for teams,
I've had so many battles at Lee Chapman and was it Thompson? The Lee Chapman and yeah, the two big boys up front. And
Yeah,
Howard played a very direct game. And
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
every time we played against Sheffield Wednesday, I think I headed the ball twice as much as
Yeah, yeah.
any other game.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's good to
But
hear. Good to hear.
but playing at Hillsborough was always a great experience. The
Yeah.
atmosphere was always brilliant,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
brilliant.
It's also great, I think, in football when you get to play away. I always love going to away matches because
Yeah.
the away, I mean, the home fans are good. The away fans are like, the creme de la menthe of
Yeah.
of the supporters, aren't they? They travel 200 miles to
Oh
watch
yeah.
for 90 minutes, and they're so passionate. You see them, when I go to the Wednesday ground and watch Wednesday at home, the away fans are always terrific. And when I go away with Wednesday, the Wednesday fans are always
Yeah. No.
very vocal. And yeah, it must be amazing. We don't get that in ping pong, really.
Yeah.
You have to sit there all quiet, and
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
maybe clap between points or something
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
interesting, I think I mentioned to you when we spoke prior to this, many years ago, I played for Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. And that was interesting, being sort of part of that. And we when we played some of the teams over there, it was like almost like being at a football match. Not the
Yeah. Yeah.
not the masses of supporters, but 1,000 or two people coming to a match, and they're waving banners. They've got air horns, all the
Yeah. Yeah.
continental air horns, and you just go to hit this ball, and an air horn goes off. You
Yeah.
nearly jump out your seat.
Yeah. I can imagine.
It's quite amazing. So tell us a little bit more about what's in the book. What are the sort of key things? A little bit more about the
Um,
book and what it contains, if you would, please.
um, we we how can I put this? We were all in the London area,
Okay.
and we played for our counties and districts, and didn't the usual thing,
Yeah.
and we got selected by Eddie Heath, who was the chief scout at Chelsea, who who was uh, found guilty of paedophilia,
Oh, right. Okay.
and we had to deal with that as a
Right.
group,
Yeah.
and we dealt with that as a
Okay.
group. And I remember going into his office one day and him saying to me, "How much do you want to be a professional footballer?" And I turned around and I said, "Not that much, Eddie,"
Right.
and walked out.
Yeah.
But we dealt with it. Some players didn't. Some players had mental health problems and things,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but we dealt with that.
Yeah.
Um, Eddie was sacked, um, and then it was just making our mark in the youth team, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I put in the book as the record of us, what we won together and how we won together,
Hmm.
and then it goes through our years. In the first year, when we finished, I think it was seventh in the league, and then the second year where we finished and got promotion. And what was
Yeah.
quite funny, Steve, was Chelsea had an away ban. The
Oh, right.
fans
Okay.
were had an
A
away
little bit
ban.
boisterous.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Well, it was back in the day, wasn't it?
yeah,
There's a lot of there's a lot of trouble in the
yeah,
in the
yeah.
stands at that time. Yeah, I understand.
And we went to we had to get a point at Wolverhampton Wanderers, and
Okay.
we felt a bit lonely going up there and having to
Uh-huh.
face a stadium full of Wolves fans. We were
Yeah.
like, the players didn't think it was fair at all.
No,
We
no,
weren't
I bet.
happy.
No, no.
But to our amazement, when we ran out, all of a sudden, all the yellow and amber and black scarves changed to blue and white, and there was about 9,000 Chelsea fans in that stadium.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and also it goes on about the great people I met playing football,
Yeah.
and the people I had the honour of working for. There's a lot in the book about Ken Shalito, Eddie McCready,
Yeah.
um, and had the honour of working with Terry Venables as well,
All right.
who,
Okay.
who was far and away the best coach I ever worked for in my life.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. That's a great compliment.
yeah. And Tommy Dock, who was a
Yeah.
hell of a. I
He
remember
was a
saying,
character.
yeah, when I signed for Derby, he said to me, he said, I know I had some questions, and I thought I'll write it down to be professional, because I only.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I suppose you're trying to do here, dog. You know what you did at Old Trafford at Man United. He said, I hope not, Stevie. The physio's wife is diabolical here. Obviously,
Yeah.
he got a
Yeah. Yeah.
sack. You're thinking, well,
Yeah.
how do you have a sensible conversation
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
a, so, but there's lots of funny things in the book. There's lots of emotional
Oh,
things in the
that's
book.
great. Yeah.
Um, and some really sort of stories, on how it was,
Yeah. 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 I think
and
I think one of the things about when you do play sport at a high level, some of the things that it's like I don't know whether it is in football. Obviously, I wasn't a footballer, but certainly in table tennis, it's like a weird life. Table tennis, I think, arguably is even weirder because like outside the world of table tennis, nobody knew me at all, not at all. And then as soon as I stepped into table tennis, I was known. People knew me, came up to me,
yeah,
like I would imagine it's like being a footballer, where people want your autograph and all
yeah,
that sort of stuff. And but in my world, in the table tennis world, it was like you go outside of that sports hall where you've been playing and nobody knows you at all.
yeah, yeah,
But I would imagine the lifestyle of a footballer, obviously probably very different to what it is now, but still incredibly rewarding and but hard at times as well, injuries and transfers and so on and
yeah,
so forth. Yeah.
yeah. I do a bit in the book where Mickey Droy pulled a hamstring,
Yeah.
and I had a broken toe,
Right.
and I all week I wore a flip flop and a trainer. I could not even put a shoe on,
Right.
and then Mickey pulled a hamstring.
Uh-huh.
So I get called into Chelsea, and I get asked, "Do you want to play on Saturday?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to play on Saturday, but I've not even put a shoe on all week." So they said, "Well, if we give you an injection, we think you'll be all right. We give you a fitness test, and we'll see how it is." So I had a cortisone injection into my toe.
All right.
Everything was fine. Played the
Uh-huh.
game. 9:30 that night, I was in absolute agony,
Yeah.
and I did that. I did that for 6 weeks
Did you?
to the
Wow.
end of the season.
Wow.
Yeah, every Friday. Yeah,
Wow.
and it was a real test. And now,
Yeah. Yeah.
before pulling my curtains, I can tell you if it's rained, if it's damp. I can tell you because my toe tells me.
That's amazing. So who was the best player you've played against? I wanted to ask you that.
I was lucky enough to have played against Johan Cruyff,
Did you? Wow. Wow. Cool.
Pele,
Pele as
um,
well. Wow.
Maradona.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
when he played for Naples.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I the person I admired most, and he was a handful, and he was very difficult to play against, being a tall person.
Uh-huh.
But I've got the utmost respect for was Kenny Dalglish.
Right. Yeah.
Kenny was a absolutely superb player.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And although he was small, he was,
Yeah.
he'd get
Well,
stuck in, he'd
yeah,
have a
so
go.
was Maradona. It's interesting, isn't it? With football, it's you got players of almost all sort of sizes and shapes.
Yeah,
And you're not going to be just because you're tall doesn't mean
no, no,
or just because you're small often that doesn't mean you're not going to be a good player. It's quite varied. I think it's I suppose to do with positions and how you play and so on and
yeah.
so forth.
I,
Yeah.
I, I think the game then, Steve, as well. Every team had a very, very hard physical number nine.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
being a centre back, it was my job to mark the likes of Joe Jordan, Peter
Yeah.
With, Andy Gray.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Not easy.
it was a real. you know, hard time, physical time, and
Yeah.
you compare today when people go down as if they've been shot by a sniper in the stadium, and you look, you
Yeah.
know, when Joe Jordan gave you an elbow, you walked away thinking, in absolute thinking, God, but you wouldn't let him know he hurt you.
No, no.
It was almost in reverse. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't let him know that. You
No.
know, you just. And I remember playing against Joe and coming off. I think it was 17 stitches
Did you? Yeah,
from
yeah.
elbows, and you know, it was a real test.
Yeah,
Real
yeah.
test.
A man's game back then.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
What do you think to modern football, obviously, other than what you've just said, which is, I think everybody would agree with you right now, you know. It's must the game's a bit like, again, a bit like table tennis has changed massively
Yeah.
since, you know, you played and the money in it and, you know, even the rules and everything. What are your thoughts on the modern game of football?
Well, someone asked me why did I think England didn't win, haven't won a championship since 1966.
Mm,
And they especially asked me about the last two finals they've been in. And I do wonder, did you ever see the Rocky film Eye of the Tiger?
yes. Yeah.
When he all of a sudden, from being this unbelievable street fighter, he's got this magnificent house, he's got his Ferrari,
Yeah.
everything's going for him, and he loses the eye of the
Yes.
tiger.
Yeah.
I wonder if players have got so much money,
Mm,
so much, you know, they don't have to worry about anything.
mm,
I wonder if we as a team have lost that desire, that
mm.
eye of the tiger to go that.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the one person who I think is an incredible example is Jude Bellingham. I think he's the one that shows
Okay. He's
he
got
he
that.
wants it. He
Yeah.
wants it. But no, I just think it's. I think also I don't like the 20 passes across the back and keep going sideways.
It drives me
You know,
absolutely mad. I'll be honest
yeah,
with you. Yeah. I mean, it's boring. You
it
know,
is.
let's say, you know, I mean, I love football. I always have done. But seeing that go back across and it comes back, and so often it's like every Saturday somebody will make a mistake where they
Yes,
pass it to the opposition and they
yeah,
score, or you know, the goal is trying to dribble it out and, you know, he
yeah.
gets the ball taken off him. It happens almost every Saturday, I think.
Yes,
Mm.
yeah. Oh, mind you, the game has changed. It's evolved.
Yeah, it has. It
It's
has.
amazing. It's amazing how one person has had made such an impression in football, and that's Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because every team is trying to play his
Trying
way,
to play like him, aren't they? Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I think that he's proven to be a magnificent coach. But for someone to
Sure.
change football in this country,
Yeah, yeah.
he's literally done that. And
Yes, yes.
but it's I look at it, and I looked at Burnley, and I looked at Southampton, and
Yeah.
you've got people trying to play that way.
That way, where
And
they
the difference
just
why Pep's can play that way because he's got world class players.
exactly. Yeah. Do you
You
know,
know, you
I'm so
can't do
glad
it.
to hear a professional like you say that, because you know, as a supporter, I've been saying that Wednesday do it. You know, it goes
Yeah,
across the back and it comes back across, and sooner or later we mess up. You know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and you can't. You have to be world class to do that. I think. You
yeah.
know,
You do,
their players are brilliant. You know,
yeah,
and ours are slightly less than brilliant, shall
yeah.
we say?
But you know, people stick to their principles,
Yeah,
and you know, and but it's funny because I was talking to my son, who's a big Chelsea fan. Um, and we were talking about football in my day, about football in today, um, and he was at home watching TV, and
yeah,
Big Match Revisited was on,
yeah.
and it was Chelsea versus Liverpool,
Right.
and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe the pace of the game. He couldn't
Yeah,
believe how
yeah,
everyone looked forward, how
yeah.
everyone, you know, couldn't believe the state of the pitch.
No, no,
You know, couldn't believe,
no. Yeah,
and he just said, "God, it was end to end
yeah,
stuff," and
yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah.
you know, and exciting.
Yeah.
Um, but so I converted him a little bit. So if I can
Yeah,
do
yeah. Well,
that, we're
that's
doing.
good. Yeah, yeah. We're coming towards the end of our time together. I always like to ask people a question, and that is, you know, I always when you get, you go through an experience like you've gone through, a career that you went through. Two questions really I'd like to ask you. What advice would you give somebody who's perhaps starting out in the football world, maybe turning pro? They're not a beginner, a young boy kicking a ball around, but they've got to a level and maybe getting their first contract or something like
Yes.
that. What
Yeah.
what what advice would you give somebody? And secondly, what would you do different if you had your time to come again?
Right. The first question is, I was sat with Tony Curry, who was one of the finest footballers I'd ever played with in my life. And he was about to leave QPR and go to Vancouver Whitecaps.
Okay.
And Tony lived, he was, and all Tony kept saying, having our chat, was
Right.
if only I hadn't have done it, if only I'd been more dedicated, if only I'd have,
Yeah.
My advice to any kid that's got talent is give it your best shot, because there's
Mm,
nothing worse than being in a pub with all your mates 5, 6 years later saying the two words, if God's given you a gift, that you
yeah.
should never say, if
Yeah.
only,
Yeah. Yeah.
if only.
There are. I mean, I remember when I was sort of that age in the table tennis world, there were some really good players who never really, they just didn't put the effort in.
No,
I
no.
wasn't particularly talented. I was reasonably talented. I was very quick. I had quick reactions. That was my talent. And but I just worked phenomenal. I
Yeah,
never took a day off. I played every day from about
yeah,
14 to 18, literally 365 days a year.
yeah,
And, I just got good pretty quickly. And, I agree. There's a table tennis player, actually, a guy called Matthew Syed, who wrote a book
yeah.
called
Oh,
Bounce. I don't know whether you know of that, but it's become quite a sort of famous and successful book. And it's all about, is it about talent or is it about hard work? And which one's most important? And it was just really, an interesting book. And as
mm,
you said, yes, there were probably other players as talented as Tony Curry, but they didn't work as hard as he did.
yeah, yeah.
And he himself says he didn't work as hard as he could have done. Perhaps
Yes,
it'd have been even better if he had have done.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
okay,
Terry Venable said to me once. He said the makeup of a world class player is 60% ability and 40% mentality,
right, okay,
because 40% mentality will help you realize your potential.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
I think that's probably true. And what about yourself? What would you do differently?
I think um, I can honestly say to myself, and I hope my fellow players that have played with it, I always gave everything. I
Yeah,
always gave everything.
right.
Um, my big upset in my when I had I went to a stage of doing I had missed two start of the season through cartilage. I had cartilage out,
Okay,
and in those days it was a lot longer than what it was now.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but there's not that much I would have changed.
Right. Okay. Well,
I just gave everything, really.
yeah, that's nice to be able to say, isn't it? To look back
Yeah,
and think, do you know what? I did pretty well, and
yeah,
I had a great time. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, really, really good. So last thing then, how do people get hold of your book? Because I'd love to get that in the hands of,
Yeah.
real people who'd no doubt love to read it.
Empire Publishing, they've got a web on their website. In fact, I'll confirm it all with you afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's also for the book launch on the 7th of June, Eventbrite are promoting it.
Yeah.
Um, and in that price, you get a book. There's entertainment. There's question answer with the players.
Okay.
It's a really good night,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's and I've posted that
Something.
on my Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
But if it's all right with you, I'll get everything to you. But that's
Yeah,
it's
please do.
Empire Book.
Send it to me. For anybody listening today, I'll stick a link underneath
Yeah,
the
lovely,
video and or the podcast so that you can see that and go and click on the link and go and buy
yeah,
it. So
brilliant.
brilliant. Okay, just leaves me to thank you ever so much, Steve, for being here. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, really,
Fascinating talking to you. And I wish you every success with your book. If you send me, whatever links, I'll share that all over my
lovely, Steve.
social media. I've got about 80,000
Oh,
social media contacts. So,
yeah, lovely,
we'll get that out to as many people as possible. Thanks
much
again.
appreciated.
And look forward to speaking to you all next time. Don't forget, by the way, um, subscribe to my podcast. Follow me on YouTube, and get more normally sales, marketing, business growth tips. But do you know what? I've really enjoyed today,
I've
and
enjoyed it, Steve.
maybe
It's been
maybe do a few more of these types of things
absolutely,
as
mate. I've
well.
really enjoyed it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye
Great to
then,
speak with you.
everybody.